Our guest is arriving.
We're live.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to a few of you. My name is Gregory Sneed, and welcome to today's community briefing. Today is October 7, 2021, and we are happy that you have enjoyed us. Should I do that again? Take two. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Gregory Sneed, and welcome to the community briefing. Today is October 7, 2021, and we are glad you are joining us today. Our guest is Everett Sands, and he will be joining us momentarily. In the meantime, a little bit about ourselves. My name is Gregory Sneed, and Lifesaver Financial Services is the name of my business. I am a financial coach. I teach financial literacy, and I also offer life insurance and long-term care products. I believe that when you feel better about your money, you feel better about your life. I'll put some information in the chat, and if you'd like to get some consultation about your money, keep more of it, or perhaps life insurance coverage, look to hear from you. And now, our queen, Crystal Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you. Nice overcast Thursday morning. Welcome. We have a great guest today, and we're excited to hear and to introduce him to you guys. They got an amazing program going on. So again, welcome and thank you for coming back again and inviting new friends so that we can continue to grow the community briefing. This briefing is not just for myself and Greg and Robin and Stephen. It is actually your platform. It is co-sponsored by Recycling Black Dollars and the Black Business Association, the BBA. And this is our way of bringing our community together to meet and to hear our community leaders and stakeholders talk to us about things going on in our community in real time. So thank you for joining us. I am Crystal Mitchell. I'm the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. I have my own business as well, Mitchell Business Solutions, where I provide coaching and consulting for small businesses in our communities. I am a consultant for many of the community organizations that help small businesses grow. I host another show called The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, and a show on Monday called Conversations on the Patio. So that is who I am. So with that, I am going to turn it back over to Greg. Stephen will introduce himself later, and Greg will introduce our guest, Mr. Everett Sands.
Thank you very much. Today we have Everett Sands. He is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer of Lendistry. And Lendistry is the perfect formula combining the speed and convenience of technology, the knowledge and guidance of responsible lending professionals, and the investment capital of social impactors and national banks. Their mission is to provide economic opportunities, progressive growth for small businesses, owners, and the underserved communities, and to be a source of financing and financial education. Mr. Sands is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. He got a Bachelor's of Arts in Japanese and Economics. All right. He's been to Japan and went to the, hope I'm pronouncing this right, the Sekai School. Close?
Sekai, close.
Okay, Sekai. All right, good. And also went to St. Paul's School, Concord, New Hampshire. I wasn't able to find out from your bio. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Okay, the district. And before that, he was with the Center. He's been Wells Fargo and also MCB Real Estate. Please join us and me in welcoming Everett Sands.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. One thing that wasn't on that bio, looks like you guys got a lot of information on me, is that, I learned business from my uncle who ran a plumbing company in the Bronx. And what he used to do when I was a kid is he would throw me in a car and say, okay, we're going to drive from Teaneck into the Bronx. You go behind me and you better stay on me and don't let any cars get in between. So imagine a young 16-year-old trying to drive in New York and, trying to listen to your uncle. He's one of those uncles that, let's just say he would show me his 5 fingers. So, you got to be polite in how you say these things these days. And so, I felt like I had to listen to him. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And good to see all of you. Crystal, I don't know how you have all those radio shows and different shows. So, shout out to you. You have more jobs, than what I'm used to. As a CEO, I feel like I'm the janitor to the executive, but I think you got me beat.
Yeah, we have a running joke on the Business Zone that my co-host is from Jamaica, that we try to outdo who has the most jobs, and Greg is part of that too. How many jobs you got, Mon?
That's right. I'm Caribbean too, so I was gonna go there, but I was like, I'm not gonna go there. So.
Yeah, that's our running joke. So it's cool, you can go there. But they all
Caribbean. Specify that Caribbean. What does that mean?
Yeah, so my family's from the Bahamas. Wife's family is Bajan, and from Dominica. So, and as you can imagine, I've been all over. Yeah. I don't know if the Liad is still in business, but you take the little Liad, the puddle jumping, you go, town to town, city to city. But we're in Nassau and Freeport, and then the Grand Bahamas Island.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, all my jobs lead right back to one thing: Black folks.
Hey, I hear you.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
For sure. So I'll tell you a little bit about Lendistry, and then some of the programs in New York, if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
All right, perfect.
Absolutely.
So Lendistry was created in 2015. My history, as you mentioned, I was at Penn, so Philadelphia. And spent a significant amount of time in Philly working on mortgages, right? So thinking about kind of the first wealth building activity, which is buying homes. Ended up sitting on the board of the first African-American bank in Maryland called Ideal Federal. Most people don't know because it's not around anymore, but the genesis of the bank was, at that time, Black men were not able to go to work on the B&O Railroad, for any of you that are Monopoly fans. And so the bank was started to help Black men dry clean and wash their uniforms. So if you ever got a chance to go into the bank, you see a small book that had 10 cents, 5 cents, different things like that, where men were financing the dry cleaning of their uniforms so that they could feed their family. So grew up in that history of that Black bank, ended up selling a company to another Black bank, and then jumped ship to Wells Fargo, worked there on the East Coast and the West Coast. And Lendistry was created initially to help banks as they thought about how they would want to leverage their money in terms of providing capital to underserved. And since that time, we've grown into we've got a couple of different acronyms, so I'll just say them out loud: Community Development Financial Institution, CDFI, Community Development Entity, an SBA lender, and a member of the Federal Home Loan Bank. We've always been investing in technology for the past 2.5 years. And the way I generally think about it is the pandemic was somewhat of a call to action. And then the unrest, the civil unrest, which I'll mention George Floyd, is like, I don't mean to be remiss by not naming all the names, which are too many to name, was, for me as a Black man to kind of step up and say, what could I do better? And so took all of our business plans and ripped them apart and said, let's 10X it. And so fast forward to today, what that essentially means is we started to leverage tech and our financial prowess to do things that we thought were needed in the community. So we'll end up financing about 600,000 businesses this year. We'll deploy about 8 to 9 billion in capital. If you haven't figured that out, that makes us the largest minority-led financial institution, Black-led financial institution in the country. And part of what we try to do is we try to partner with not only financial institutions that you guys will know well. Some of our clients are small community banks you might not know, and big banks you guys in your neck of the woods, like a Goldman Sachs. And then we also partner with states and counties and cities as they think about deploying money. One of those would be the state of New York, which I'll talk a little bit about that program shortly. And then we also partner with financial institutions. So if you are an Amazon US-based seller, you could go onto Amazon Community Lending and note that that's powered by Lendistry. And so you might say Amazon has a community lending program. What you might not know is that it's powered by a Black-led company. And so those are different things that we do, whether it be financial institutions, private institutions, or cities and states. And our goal here is really to think about, a new way to serve underserved communities. We've got a specific mission focused around African Americans, Hispanic, Latinos, and what are called investment areas. So just think of impoverished areas. And we have a lot of partners. Some of the partners are actually on the call here. You've got Cameo here, which handles microloans. You've got the Center, which is here, and they do business advising and technical assistance, both face to face, obviously, generally speaking, and in the new normal, we'll see how that shapes itself out, and also online. You got Impact here, who I also see. So it's great to partner. Let me just pause there, see if you guys have any questions, and then I'll jump into some other things for you.
That's very impressive. I know I had met you at an event we attended probably around 2016. You guys have been quite progressive since.
Yeah. Was that at St. Mark's Church in Brooklyn, or was it outside of?
I didn't know. It was here in LA. We were at a meeting. It might have been
LA.
2016. I know that was the very first time I'd heard your name. You just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's like, whoa. And then what you guys have done is just absolutely amazing. The progression that you've made, especially in the state of California, or the city, or for us in the city.
Yeah, the history, just so you know what fuels me every day is obviously the small businesses, but I'll give you a little bit of my background. So I'm from Washington, D.C. Grandfather was the first African-American tailor in the 1930s. First African-American to have a contract with the U.S. Army. He made the Korean war caps, for any of you that might be familiar with those pictures in your history books. He also was first African-American to create a trade school in Washington, D.C. And that's the good part of the story. The unfortunate part of the story is he didn't get access to capital the way he should have. And so he got some bad financial advice and tax advice. And so I kind of grew up as a young man in DC, living a story of what if, right? You drive past places that your grandfather owned or rented. You meet people that used to work with him and tell these legendary stories. And then you start to think, quite frankly, damn, I wish I was there for him, right? And so that's my story. I swept the floors of one of those tailoring shops. I worked the cash register. So, again, Crystal, not as many jobs as you, but I can tell some stories about, being in the weeds. But I look at every small business as if they were my grandfather. And so that kind of motivates me every day. And that's led to some of the work thank you for recognizing the work we've done in California. But that's recognizing some of the work, right? So whether I'm at an event at Faithful Central, right, or whether I'm at an event for the state, I'm constantly trying to keep my head on the swivel about, how do I help my grandfather, right? Which means how do I help all the small businesses that are out there?
Yeah, Stephen, Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. You mentioned St. Mark's Church. I was born and raised in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. So I think that's right on Union Street, if I recall.
Yeah. Well, when I saw the person give a shout out, I thought about Brooklyn instantly. So my head went there. As opposed to LA, where I'm sitting in downtown LA right now.
And then Lasagna's here representing Bed-Stuy. Let's see. So the question we had here is, what impact did the SBA programs have for Lendistry? Such as the PPP, the federal state grants. How did that, boost? How is that, stimulating, the organization, within the marketplace? It had to be a tremendous boost, I imagine.
Yeah. So, I'll talk about the past, kind of the present and then going forward. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to Chairwoman Waters, who helped us as we were trying to navigate through the program, because she did some wonderful things. But, initially what happened is our clients, again, are banks. And generally banks call us when there's something that they need help with. And banks knew kind of before the public knew that they were going to struggle to help some of their small business customers, deposit customers, because they weren't lending customers. And so they called us and said, look, can you help these individuals out? Now, of course, at the time, we had no idea what the onslaught would be. We, like everybody else, we thought the pandemic was going to be a sprint, not a marathon. But, you know, in answer to your question, it calls Lendistry to roll up our sleeves, Lendistry and the center to roll up our sleeves, think about business advising, think about technical assistance, and really to jump in. Just so you guys know, kind of fast forward, we were just doing loans of $250,000 only in California. And just to give you some perspective, we were getting phone calls. I mean, if you take the team at the center, which again is our nonprofit that works on business advising, we were waking up at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. doing conferences in Atlanta, New York, Baltimore. We were just trying to help people everywhere because, quite frankly, they look like us. Like, I mean, it didn't really matter. I mean, we finance schools, we financed Goodwill, you know, of Orange County, just to give you an idea. We ended up expanding to doing loans up to $10 million all across the nation. You know, it's crazy when the African American Museum of History calls you, and this is the one in Baltimore, by the way, Reginald Lewis Museum, if you guys aren't familiar with it, calls us and says, well, we can't get this loan. Can you help us out? And we're like, we got to figure this out. And that's where Chairwoman Waters' office, her team got involved with. They're like, you got to give these guys expanded authority. The full answer to your question is we did roughly 245,000 PPP loans. We're the 8th largest lender in the country. So we were on top of lenders that you might know, like Wells Fargo and some of the other big banks out there, all because we decided to roll up our sleeves and take it. And then I'll keep that going and tell you that I don't know how much politics you all follow, but we got involved recently with the administration and the reconciliation bill. And so we're talking to SBA right now and trying to help them form their thoughts around what's called a direct lending program. But there's two ways to look at this. One way is, you know, we could look at the past and say, look, the SBA's past with our minority communities hasn't been the best. And I'll be the first one to admit that. I'll also be the first one to tell you that, look, I think Administrator Guzman and the work that we're doing is going to change this. And so we're looking at a direct lending program and helping to guide that. That's a loan program up to $150,000. And I think that's going to be, it won't be PPP like for sure. It won't be that light on paper, but it also will transcend what you know is the current 7A program. We're also talking to them about how we can get more Black-led organizations to do SBA lending, right? Because part of it is we need to be the deployers of capital to help us become the receivers of capital. And so these are the things that we're sitting in the background. You guys won't see all the work today. I'm giving you kind of some inside baseball here for all your Dodger fans that are super happy. But you know, give us a couple months and you know, you'll see some of the work that we're doing. We'll stay behind the scenes, so you won't know that it, you know, everything we're doing. But the game plan here is to change systemic credit models, and SBA is one of those things we need to change.
So we all know that Black businesses are less likely or twice likely to be rejected for loans. And one of the, I guess, a silver lining for the PPP, some of our businesses got loans, got grants, got the EIDL loan that traditionally would not have happened prior to the pandemic. What does that future look like for our small businesses? Because we operate on such low capital that when we encounter something like a pandemic, we don't have reserves because everything has to go back into the business, and we stay small because of that. So what does our future look like for Black and businesses of color for the future post-pandemic?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question, Crystal, and I think this is a village concept we're talking about, right? And so
yes.
The village concept is going to take a couple of things. I'll tell you what I'm working on, and I'll tell you what I think you guys should work on. So as I mentioned before, you know, the pandemic was the call to action, and you know, the George Floyd, et cetera, was my personal call to action. And so let me just explain to you what that means. So as a Black man, you're sitting there and you see another Black man get killed, right? And you think about two things. The first thing you think about is if a Black person owned that store, they wouldn't have called the police. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. We might have roughed them up a little bit, and we might have done some things to him, but we wouldn't have killed him.
No.
The second thing you think about is the young Black man, if he got kids, grandkids, nieces, and nephews, who said, I wish I had given up my pay so that he didn't get arrested. And you start to realize that guy makes $7, $8, which means he nets $4 to $5. So what he's saying is, I wish I gave up 3 to 4 hours of my work so that man didn't get killed. And you also recognize that as a young Black man, he's going to live with that for the rest of his life. But he didn't give up 3 to 4 hours to save another man. Right or wrong doesn't really matter. And then as that transcended to me, it said to me, well, was there a Black person or was there a minority in Minnesota that tried to buy that store? And the answer is probably likely considering the neighborhood. And why didn't they have the ability to buy that store? Did they not have the education? Did they not have the access to capital? What did they do? And so that is what kept me up at night. You know, forget the images and all that stuff and the kids asking questions. What kept me up at night is why wasn't there a Black person that owned that store? And so that's what caused me to start saying, okay, the challenge that I need to be facing is I need to sit at the table. Lendistry needs to sit at the table. Black, brown, we need to sit at the table. And what does that mean? It means we need to start creating the guidelines and the rules so that we can get the access to capital. And that's why we decided to jump in full force with the state of California's program. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, California did a small business grant relief program. And there'll be some other programs coming up here soon, you know, that I can't announce yet. And we got to sit at the table. And when we got to sit at the table, you saw a $500 million program turn into a $4 billion program. You saw the paperwork required for it. It's the largest state program in the country. You might say, I didn't even know a minority was running it. Well, you're looking at the guy who's running it, right? And so we started to get involved in the rules. We started to get involved in the paperwork. We started to get involved in who are the partners that are getting the information out. That's everything from the media to the local partners like Cameo and AMPAC who are involved and who care. How do we get intentional about how we get the word out? All right, so that's our job, right? Our job is to help get to the table and be the access to capital providers. Here's where we need your help. We need your help to help get the education out, get the information out. You know, we got to stop saying that we don't know paperwork anymore. Those days are done, right? You just think of, I was in risk management and underwriting for 5 years, and I'll keep it plain with you. You can't say, I'm at home, my business is not open, and I can't get my paperwork done. Well, you know, excuse my French, what the hell are you doing at home, right? Take a couple hours and do the paperwork, right? And I think I am conscious of we don't understand the paperwork, right? And so that's what I bring it back to the education. Like, I think we got to start focusing on that. We got to start teaching our businesses how to thrive and survive. And then we got to start thinking about the kitchen table conversations. And what I mean by kitchen table conversations is like, look, let's just keep it real. If you grow up in other communities, your father, your grandfather, your grandmother, your mother, they ran a business, and then they teach you the lessons of running a business so you get to skip steps. We got to think about that now with some intentionality for our younger people, right? We got to think about how we're going to pass on these lessons, how we're going to teach them things so that they can run better businesses than us, so they could take over our businesses and so that we can help them flourish and get it. Because if we win the access to capital battle, now what we're going to have to win is, do we have the businesses to actually get the access to capital, right? So two battles are going to be going on at the same time. And so I think that's what we need to be conscious of and mindful of. And, you know, hopefully, Ms. Crystal, I'm not too direct, but, you know, I try to keep it real.
No, that's fantastic. And so that is another one of the silver linings, is that we have had to start taking focus on our understanding the financial literacy of the world and our paperwork. I was just teasing, saying to one of my colleagues today, next Thursday, I have 4 classes all back to back where I'm teaching on how to use QuickBooks, and I'm doing that for several organizations. And that's the first thing I say to them is, we can no longer say, and we should never say, I don't understand financials. I don't understand, what am I supposed to have? I don't understand the reports. What we need to be doing is, how do I learn more so that I can focus on having a sound financial structure so I'm bankable?
That's right.
So I'm in a complete agreement with you. I guess I'm the neighborhood or the community guru on how to use QuickBooks. I've been using it for a long time, since they started the company. And so I have these conversations with my clients all the time. It's so imperative that we get the financial, our financial house in order for our businesses. So then we can come to you guys and be more helpful. Stephen wants to know, what are some of your loan programs, and are there grants? Because we know moving forward right now, everybody is looking more from a grant standpoint than a loan, and so that they can then be ready for loans after they rebuild their businesses.
Yeah, so the current programs we're running, so the answer is yes, depending on where you are. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so California's program just ended September 30th.
Okay.
California is another program going out that I don't know that I'm allowed to say. I was actually just texting California to see what I'm allowed to say and not say.
Okay, all right.
So just look out for it. Let's just put it like that.
Okay.
I think somebody threw our link in the chat, our website in the chat. So just look out for it. We're running a program for New York right now, the state of New York. So if the young lady from New York hasn't seen it, you can go to NY Small Business Recovery, or put in NY Small Business Grant, and it'll pop up. We have about 8 different loan programs. I'm gonna give you a high level, not to get too deep in the weeds, but lines of credit, term loans, and commercial real estate. That's the high level. And then inside of each one of those are different programs, right? So there's an express line of credit that goes up to $250,000. There's a term loan that goes up to $250,000. And then there's loans that go up to $5 million. So we got a variety of different variety of different loan products for different clients. Commercial real estate, whether you're trying to buy your building, refinance your building, buy an investment property. We're not the house flipper, just to be clear. This is I'm all talking like business or multifamily apartment buildings. Things like that.
Okay. Oh, okay. Lines of credit. What are for those of our businesses that, and we have a nice turnout today. So thank you all for joining us. What are the criterias, qualifications they need for lines of credit? Because that's usually what I recommend to my clients, as opposed to just straight loans. Use it as you need it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely needed. And I'm gonna give it to you a couple different ways. So when you come into our system, the system effectively pulls information on you and looks at several things. So first thing, it looks at your credit report. So I would love to say to you, look, hey, your credit score needs to be down to 600, but just know that although that's true, there's different things involved in that credit score, right? So just so we're upfront honest with each other. It looks at revenue trends. And so you could be trending positively, you could be trending negatively, but why are you trending that way? So again, even though it looks that way, the question is, what's the story? So for example, we're involved with the city of LA, and we're trying to help in terms of various contractors, whether it be Super Bowl, whether it be Olympics, whether it be World Cup. If you guys don't know One LA, there's some big initiatives behind LA in terms of trying to get that money to small businesses to help them win contracts. So again, you might not have a lot of business, but you might have this contract that you just won. An example might be LAX, is one of our clients. And so we could help you with that. Keep going along the story that you asked about. There's collateral, and sometimes you don't have collateral, right? And so we look at collateral differently. We actually look at it as what we define as exposure. Exposure is completely different from collateral. Collateral is, I got a house, I got money, I got something I'm putting up. Exposure is, what is the risk that Lendistry is taking? You might say, well, why are you thinking about that? Well, I shared with you before, we're kind of crusaders for thinking about innovative models and credit, right? Systemic credit, which you might not know is the state of California has 6 loan guarantee programs, 3 of which we use, and they can guarantee your loan up to 80% or $2.5 million, the lesser of the 2. And so you might not have collateral, but you might qualify for one of those guarantee programs, right? And so just think of it like a state level SBA of sorts. And then just to continue on that thought, then we look at your industry, and then we look at your time of business. And so essentially when you come into our profile, you put all this information in, it effectively gives you a grade. And then when it gives you that grade, that outputs for us rate, risk, term, etc. So hopefully that answers your question.
That does. That's very holistic looking at a business, as opposed to just see the numbers on the page and immediately reject it. And I think in our communities, we do need to be able to tell the story, because of the fact that we didn't start our businesses with a capital loan. We had to start our business producing and making money, and then being able to pay all our bills and try to grow our businesses. So kudos, that's fantastic to you. Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, let's see. We had the fintech. Oh, what role is Lendistry playing or will play in helping the community with financial literacy? Because as Crystal alluded, a lot of the applicants for the PPP, the EIDL, just weren't bank ready, didn't understand really the ramifications of having paperwork and be able to provide it, what a P&L is, balance sheet, et cetera.
Yeah, So let me answer your question a couple ways. So the first is we have a sister company, long title. Okay, so just bear with me here. The Center for Strategic Economic Studies and Institutional Development. We nickname it the Center, and you can go on the centerbylendistry.org. And that group of team members, their main focus is business advising and technical assistance. They also just finished a grant program for the city of LA where they awarded grants out for one of our bank clients. And so that group, same thing, they're looking at data, they're looking at information, they're trying to do what's best for our communities to serve them from both a business advising and technical assistance perspective. So that's one. The second thing is we partner with many partners who can provide technical assistance and business advising. And the reason why I say that is when you're in a city or an area like LA, there's a variety of different things you need to be thinking about. The obvious might be languages, right? And so when you think about the different languages and different things like that, while we speak 8 different languages in Lendistry, you might have a language we don't speak. And so we're leveraging partners. There might be a loan size we don't do, right? Like I mentioned Cameo, and they have more micro lenders in their, in their profile and in their group than we have. And so, we might leverage a partner. And then the third thing is just how we think about finance and how we think about financial education. And so we do different things like ask you for bank information. This is not only collecting your bank account, your bank statements. It's giving you technology products like Plaid, which you may or may not have heard of. But Plaid allows us to go into your bank account and look at your cash flow. So if you think about it, if you can't create a financial statement, but I have the ability to access and come in and look at your bank account and look at your cash flow, I might be able to make that credit decision that Crystal just asked me about, right? How are we thinking about alternative ways? Now, look, if you don't make any money, you can't pay me back.
Mhm.
Let me be clear with you. My job is I'm a lender. I got let me tell you the way when I walked into the bank, this is what they said to me. Rule number 1, don't lose the depositor's cash. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. So that's the way Lendistry is run. We don't lose cash. We're still a lender at the end of the day. We can't close down because that affects hundreds of thousands of small businesses, right? And so you always got to be able to show that ability to repay. But I think that the third part of the answer to your question, Gregory, is how do we think about alternative ways to get to the goal? Access to capital of small business, repayment for Lendistry.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it's just not cut and dry, but as I always tell when I'm talking to people how to become bankable, you guys' role is we got to get paid back. So you got to have money to make that happen. But it looks like you're willing to sit down with that particular individual and let's discuss it and let's see what the potentials are for making sure that we get our loans repaid.
Yeah, and I think, Crystal, the good thing about what you're doing is you're educating the small businesses, right? And it's funny because small business is like the outlier. Like if we were talking about education, you would say you're going to go to elementary school, junior high school, college. If you're lucky enough, you're going to get a secondary degree. If we were talking about home ownership, we'd say live in an apartment, then you get a small house or condo, you get a big house. And if you're lucky enough, you become an empty nester and you go back down the other side. When we talk about small businesses, like this abyss, like, oh, go to Google, figure it out yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no path to success for the small business. Like, we don't sit there and give that same discipline structure. And so one of the things that I'm very interested in, one, I'm a nerd, just so we all get that out of the way. But one of the things I'm very interested in is like, how do you just build the basic steps to success? Like, how do you tell the business owner, okay, step 1, you're going to borrow from friends and family. You might borrow your home equity if you're lucky enough to have a home. You might do credit cards. You might have to, don't quit your day job. How do you tell them like that kind of first group? And then the second step is you generally going to go to mission-based lenders. Again, and you keep hearing me mention Cameo because they've got a wide variety of them for you. But your mission-based lenders, your community development financial institutions, that's your next step. And generally, that's going to be what's called a microloan, which is defined as under 100,000. And then you go to a Lendistry, which we can do microloans too, but generally we're the ones who pick up the next capital cycle and we take you up to a couple $1 million, and then you go to bankable, right? And what I'm finding and what I have found in our community is we walk into the bank first, right? So we don't know the steps. And so let me tell you what I see and what I hope you guys will learn. There's 2 things. 1, we walk into the bank first, so we're out of order. Second is we don't understand what the bank does. And so, let me just, Chris, I'm gonna pick on you for a second. All right.
Okay.
Now, do you know Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes.
Okay, what do they sell?
Donuts, coffee.
Donuts, and you get donuts and coffee. Well, why don't you buy a cheeseburger from them?
Because that's not the business they're in.
That's not the business they're in. Now, do they tell you we don't sell cheeseburgers?
No, they did not. We just make
They
that
don't, right?
assumption. Yeah.
That's right. We make an assumption that they don't, and then they tell us they sell donuts and coffee. Well, guess what? Banks only tell you what they do. They don't tell you what they don't do. So you got to walk in that bank and you got to say, do you sell cheeseburgers? No, we don't. So you walk into a bank, you say, hey, I want to get a commercial real estate loan. Guess what? They don't tell you what they don't do. They only tell you what they do. So you have to take those extra steps and you got to ask them, hey, I know you sell donuts and coffee, but do you sell cheeseburgers? Right? Hey, I see you will take my deposit account, but will you lend to me? Do you do small business lending? No, I only do residential lending. Do you do residential lending? No, I only do small business lending. Do you do commercial lending? No, I only do residential lending. They're not going to tell you what they don't do, right? But we have to use that same kind of concept and ask those questions. So the lesson that I'm trying to share with you is twofold. Number one, we got to understand the banks that we're dealing with, and it doesn't make the bank bad. They're just a certain type of business, right? Like if you walk into a hair salon, maybe they do extensions and weaves, and maybe they don't. Maybe they just do hair coloring. I don't know what they do, right? But you would ask that hair salon, hey, could you do this style for me, right? You would call a friend and you'd make sure you get a recommendation for that. I don't go to the hair salon too much anymore. Greg and I, yeah, Steven and I, we out of that business. But you guys get my point.
Yeah, we get your point. No, that's fantastic. And that's what I kind of share. So Greg is our financial literacy. That's his business. I talk to our businesses about, there's a difference between personal financial literacy and business financial literacy, but we're in business. And so that's my area of trying to help them understand what the language, the mindsets, the thought processes. And you should know that before you go into business. That's not something you learn after. You do that beforehand, because at some point you're going to need funding for your business. So fantastic. I believe there's a question here.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions here.
Okay, go ahead.
We have a couple of questions. I'm just trying to, again, let me introduce myself. I'm Stephen Turner. I'm one of the hosts of the community briefing. Everett, thank you for coming on. I'd like to know, just for a batting order, how things are going to go. We have Catherine Shirley has a question, and then we're going to follow up with Colette Moore. But my question is, how does Lendistry work with the different community partners, PCR, Vermont Slauson, Hilda's organization? And then secondarily, where do you see the future of Lendistry in the next 5 years? And lastly, how can we as a Black business community support you?
Sure. No, I appreciate all of those. And Colette, good to see you. Here's the thing, having been at 2 Black banks and then a national bank and now a CDFI, our banking system is very similar to our small businesses. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the history of banking, we had no choice in the beginning. We had to know A to Z, because quite frankly, we didn't have the majority banks to help us. Okay. But that time has now passed. We don't need to know A to Z. We need to decide what we do best and decide in between A to Z what we're going to cover. And so what I mean by that is, let me just use PCR as an example. If Colette says, I want to do A to M, then she's got to go find somebody that does M to Z. If Richard Pillay from AMPAC and Hilda's company says, I do, M to P, they're going to find the people to do the other alphabet. And so now let me bring it in the real world. What I think Lendistry is very good at is tech. And I think we've made a decision that this is what we're going to do, right? It's no secret, it's public information. When we did the California program, just to give you some numbers, Stephen, we took in 344,000 applications in 15 days. No one has done that, majority or non-majority institutions. And so when you think of that A to Z puzzle, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, look, the banks are open 9 to 5, the businesses are open 5 to 9, right? In which you guys know what I mean by that. Basically, they're running their business, so they can't come into the bank and learn financial education and do loans during the normal business hours. We need to figure out other ways to get to people, whether it be on the weekend, whether it be at night. You know, people are uploading documents at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning, which means that, you know, we need to think about how do we access and help these people out. And we need to think the same thing when it comes to education. And so what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to partner with organizations. If you look at that California program, Stephen, we had 33 core partners. We had 500 sub-partners. It was the largest group of mission-based lenders and mission-based organizations ever coming together. And we did that via tech. And Lendistry was behind that tech to help the small businesses in California. We partner with Carver Bank, One United Bank, multiple minority banking institutions to help them get up to speed, right? So that they can get and be able to deploy more capital. Now, when you think about it and you say, you know, how do we think about that ecosystem? They got access to the Fed window, right? We got access to the tech. Colette at PCR has access to the community. And I'm not saying that the Black bank doesn't have access to the community, and I'm not saying Lendistry doesn't. I'm saying that if we start to come together and we start to bring these collaborations together, guess what that means? More scalable financing, more deployment of capital. That's how you get 344,000 applications in 15 days. And I think, in the final answer to your question, which I appreciate you asking, how can you help us? Or what can you do for us? I think there's two things. I think the first thing is giving us that education. Like Crystal said, we need lines of credit. The truth is we know that from the data, but we still need to hear more. We need lines of credit to do what, right? Because we need to go behind the scenes and work with the state legislators and the federal government and help you with the what, whatever that might be, right? Certifications, access to capital, credit enhancements, loan guarantees. And then I think the second thing is we can all do more of this. Fellowship and again, what I call kinship conversations, because the more we start to skip steps and collaborate, you're going to see exponential growth. And the truth is, we see it in other communities every day. We just got to get on the bandwagon and get on the bus.
Okay. Catherine Shirley, you'd like to pose your question to Mr. Sands? And if you'd be so kind, you can unmute yourself. Catherine is a CPA, a teacher and instructor at University of Southern California. While she's not coming on the line, what market do you serve? You mentioned New York and Los Angeles, California. What other geographical areas?
Yeah, so we're a national lender. We're based in Southern California. We have offices in Orange County and LA. We have offices in Baltimore, and soon Philadelphia and New York will open. You know, I say it hesitantly nationally because what I've learned now, being the leader of Lendistry, is the stories we tell in LA are the same stories in Detroit, same stories in Miami, same stories in Dallas. And so I wish we could do more, right? And on one hand, I'm excited. Yes, we'll deploy $8 to $9 billion this year. I honestly think it's about $1 trillion issue. So, it's not enough is the bottom line. But the answer to your question is we're national.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
You want to ask Catherine's question for her?
She said she has too much background noise. She don't want to disturb the webcast.
So she put her question in the chat box. So, are you working with any social equity franchise programs like what Every Table restaurant is using? Every Table has gotten over $4 million through program related investments to create access to capital for underserved, to allow them to become franchise owners without having to jump through the traditional hoops. So I guess the question is, are you doing any programs like that?
So I don't know that we're doing that specific program, but I will tell you a couple of different things. We do ecosystem studies, and from those ecosystem studies, typically there's some type of birth of innovative programs. We've got clients like DoorDash, and we've got clients like restaurant associations. And what we're trying to do with some of these clients is we're trying to say, very similar to what we did with Amazon, tell us the need of the small businesses, tell us the access to capital, let's plug into your data, and let's figure out ways that we can create innovative, non-traditional methods in order to provide access to capital. And again, tech allows you to do things like that, and innovation allows you to do things like that. I think as a financial banker, I think we all want to drive people towards tax returns and financial statements. And I think that's right, because at some point you end up at a bank if you grow big enough. And so we got to keep that education going. I think in the intermediate steps, we've got to look at programs similar to, I'm sure, to the one that Catherine mentioned, and start to think about innovative ways to create financing. Now, we have to do innovation with scale, because if we don't do innovation at scale, then the proof concept doesn't work, right? You're not going to get hundreds of millions of dollars. You're not going to get billions of dollars behind it. And you heard me say it's $1 trillion problem. Look, no one has ever provided enough access to capital to underserved communities. So we don't actually know how big the problem is, right? No one's ever financed women the way we should. No one has financed African Americans the way we should. So no one actually knows how big the issue is. Let's just be honest about that. And so, again, being a nerd, I sit there and I look and I try to figure out the equation. I'm like, oh my God, this is way bigger than we all think it is. It's not $1 billion problem. It's like hundreds of billions of dollars, it's probably trillions of dollars, because what you can't figure out, to one of the SBA questions that was asked earlier is what happens when the rapport is actually built, right? We're looking at it when the rapport is not built, when people are afraid, when people don't want to turn in the paperwork. What happens when we actually build the rapport and people come out and really raise their hand for capital? That's what I'm interested in. But in answer to your question, there's a lot of programs we're participating in. I wish we could participate in more, obviously. And we're trying to, again, through tech and other things, trying to find innovative ways to add more and more scale to some of the small programs that we think we can do in long term.
Now, there's a center for Lendistry, and then there's Lendistry. Are you two separate structures? What's the difference?
Yeah. So the center, which is that one I gave you the long title for, right? The Center for Strategic Economic Opportunities and Institutional Development. The center is a nonprofit created in 1999 in Baltimore, Maryland, to help African Americans build their business. When Lendistry was created, because myself and the chairman of Lendistry stood on the board, we boarded to LA. And the best way to think about it is a foundation kind of concept. We have banks that were saying, look, we'll give you grants for loan loss reserves, we'll give you grants for programs, and we're a for-profit institution. So, they were looking for a nonprofit, and we wanted someone that was connected at our hip, someone that cared about small business. We wanted an institution that, we could partner with and effectively become sister companies to. So the center is the nonprofit. And to be clear, it was started in 1999. And Lendistry was started in 2015. So the nonprofit was here before the for-profit.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Didn't know that. Well, fantastic. We as community leaders, recycle by dollars. And I think for me, once we close all our silos, that's I think the first step is closing all our silos, working all together in order to reach the one end is to help small Black businesses grow and scale. So I'm all about closing our silos. So what can RBD do? And I'm sure all of us that are other organizations, BBA, what can we do to help get the word out there to our membership to help grow, to help us reach that end goal?
Yeah, so I think everything starts with intentionality, right? And so when we provide access to capital, just to give an example, we're hoping that institution hires someone that looks like them, teaches someone the trade. Going back to my grandfather, right? I told you he was the first African American in DC with a trade school. He was teaching them how to become a tailor. They went on and did other great things. But that educational component, I think, is where we should start. I think the second thing we need to do is we need to be more conscious and cognizant of what we're using the access to capital for, right? And so if you come to me and say, hey, I want $20,000 for marketing, did you actually go get some bids? Did you actually go find a true vendor? Or are you guessing that you need $20,000? And the reason why I'm suggesting things like this is because the day I loan you the money, that's the day you owe me the money, right? So I want you to be able to turn it into profit immediately. I'm not just asking only because I'm lending to you, it's because I want you to be constructive with how you use the money. And the third thing I would share. So the first one is education. The second is really think through. And I think you have a business community that can help them think through, right? So if I want to do marketing, I can come to Crystal and find hopefully a minority Black that runs a marketing company, right?
Yes.
And can help me think through this. And it doesn't mean that I'm gonna hire them. I might hire, somebody else. That's perfectly fine. But that education of the interview and understanding marketing is essential when you might only know how to just make widgets, right? And then the last thing I would tell you is we got to understand debt a little bit better. On one hand, we can't be afraid of it because we got to understand leverage. On the other hand, we got to understand the debt that we're getting, right? Because the predatory lenders, the merchant cash advances, and I mean, they do check cashing. I mean, they do amazing jobs of being on our street corners, marketing to us, going at us, digital ads, etc. And so, I think that's top of mind for me as a finance professional is how do we protect ourselves from, money going out the door. If we're going to truly talk about community, one of the ways to help community is to recycle it, right? And so part of recycling is to have an education and an understanding of what is bleeding out, and how that bleeding out is actually happening, and how do you rethink that strategy. So hopefully that answers it for you, Chris.
That answers your question, and that's going to lead me right in. The great segue, Everett, to I'm going to share something. So he's absolutely right. You guys know RBD has been in this business for 30 years. And one of the things we talk about is supporting each other's businesses. But if we don't know you're in business and we don't know how to contact you, we got a problem, right? We can't support you. We can't build our community. So RBD we are now digital. So we have our printed resource guide, but we also have now created a digital platform that's online as a website, and also now in the Google Play Store, and we're working on getting it in the Apple Play Store. We need you to list your businesses here. So there's a link there. We are starting our membership drive starting next week, and this is going to have a lot of bells and whistles. It's not just a directory, it's actually a marketing tool to help you market your business. So there will be some upselling to it, but initially we want you in free and just put your business there with your contact information so we know how to reach you so we can grow this. This is a partnership between RBD, so about community, RBD, and the Los Angeles Urban League. And so our goal is to get all of Southern California, Northern California, and then wherever there's an Urban League office, this directory will be available. But we're going to start here, and we're going to work to get us all there so we can do what Everett just said, support our businesses. So our dollar turns over more than 6 hours in our community. If we don't do it, how will someone else want to support us? So we just got to look at it being realistic. If we can't help each other, why would we expect somebody else to want to help us? So use the link that's in the chat, get your business in there. We'll be reaching out to you on some of the markups. Reasonable, we understand where we are. And the whole thing is we need to start supporting each other. So I'll come off that soapbox, but I hope you guys take us up on this one.
Tell my buddy, Mr. Lawson, I said hello if you talk to him before I do.
I certainly will. Certainly will. Stephen, you want to tell us who's next week? Also, the Urban League has their centennial dinner or event coming up. So go onto their website and go on to their Facebook page. Just get details. Stephen, over to you.
Again, on behalf of the Recycling Back Dollars, the Black Business Association, Everett would like to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to meet with us today. A number of people, quite a number, maybe half people on this particular call have received funding from Lendistry in one manner or the other, whether it was debt financing or a grant. So your words resonated with many of us. So on behalf of all, we thank you. If you like what Everett K. Sands had to say today, join us next week with one of his partners, Ms. Hilda Kennedy, who's the founder and president of Impact Capital, will be our special guest. She will talk about where is the money and how do we get it. And so that'll be next week. And also I'd like to add to the conversation that if you like the format, the things that we're doing on the community briefing, let us know, because we are volunteer organization, but yet you can make a small donation to help us reach more and bring more caliber of individuals like Everett Sands. So please visit our website. With that, I turn it over to you, Crystal and Greg, for closing comments.
All right, thank you guys so much. Colette, good to see you. Emma Sands. And it's great that we're all working together, sharing a platform, networking, and supporting our own. Someone just made a comment. It was Mr. Roger Dangerman up there. He said, it feels good to be Black this morning. So thank you, Everett, for making it. Roger feel good to be Black today. We need those motivating moments. So thank you guys, and continue to go out and tell everyone about the community briefing. We are growing. I hope we're bringing you quality conversations. In the e-blast that you get from me, there's a survey. So go to that e-blast if you got it. If you don't, you will be getting it because it goes out every week. And just tell us who else you would want to hear, what other topics you want to talk about. And so there's a survey there where we're asking you to complete. And I'm going to turn it to Greg.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. I was going to just do a quick shout out here for your team there, Everett. Looks like your executive team there, quite a bit of diversity. So that's just the team is working with. We appreciate you coming. Quite a few of your colleagues and your partners in money are here. Colette Moore and Richard Collet and Emma Maxey with SBA. We all thank you all for joining us today, and definitely come back. Crystal, I think you had mentioned that this recording will be available later this week, so
Yes.
you can share it with your friends and colleagues. And we want you to come join us next week. And we thank you for coming in.
Right. You can find it on Facebook, Recycling Black Dollars Facebook page, and it will be on the community briefing in the next few days. So have a great week, guys. Be safe. We're still in a pandemic, so still mask up. Get your booster shots if they're available to you. Social distance and keep your hands sanitized. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye-bye.
Y'all come
Thank
back
you,
now.
Everett.
Thanks for
We
the
so
opportunity.
appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everyone have a blessed